Welcome back to part 3 of how positive thinking produces positive results. Now, as we mentioned in the first lesson, there was a new book printed several years ago called The Secret, and its whole idea brought to the forefront the idea of the law of attraction, which became very popular and is to this day very popular. How if a person thinks about something hard enough and long enough, that the positive result will happen in the world. If they really, really want it, if they really, really think about it, it'll happen. The universe will make it happen, as they say. So, first of all, just to clarify, whenever scientists or secular people talk about the intelligence or the universe will make it happen, what they really mean is God. The universe doesn't have its own independent intelligence. When they say it, they can't say God because that's crossing into religious territory. But the idea of the universe, the universal intelligence, whatever they say, causes it to happen, what they really mean is God. So what does Judaism say about God's responses to our positive thoughts? This idea of positive thinking is very much intertwined with the idea of faith and trust. Now, faith and trust are two different things. What is faith? A person has faith means like this. Faith means that everything is guided by a divine scheme. It's all in the divine plan. Whether the incident that's happening to me now is something that I like or that I dislike, something that's good for me or bad for me, or I feel that I can appreciate or don't appreciate, either way the person has faith, they realize that everything is worked out in the grand scheme. Favorable or not. So this gives person a piece of the natural result is that this gives person peace of mind. If a person's never worried if they have the idea that everything that's happening to them is orchestrated by a divine symphony. But then there's a deeper level, and that's called trust or bitachon in Hashem. Trust in Hashem. A lot of people think that faith and trust are the similar thing. I have faith in Hashem, I have trust in Hashem. Trust, in truth, is a little bit deeper. Faith, again, says that I believe. I could believe that you exist. Doesn't mean I trust you. So what does it mean, trust in Hashem? Trust in Hashem means as follows. You have absolute certainty and conviction that God is going to make things good. And not only make them good, but make them in a way that you perceive them as good. Not just good in the ultimate scheme of things, in the grand scheme, it's really good because God's orchestrating them, but good in a way that I can perceive how it's good. You see how it's a little bit deeper? Emunah, faith, means whatever, if it's good happening to me now, or if it's not good, if I'm perceiving it in a good way, a favorable way, or an unfavorable way, either way, it's all being orchestrated by God. That's my faith. Good or bad. Trust means I'm confident that God's going to make it good, and not only good in the grand scheme, but good in a way that I can see it's good. That's the difference. So right in this segment, we're going to zero in on the idea of trust, the idea of bitachon in Hashem. One of the most wonderful biblical accounts where we can really delve into this subject is again an account that many of you are probably familiar with. Moses is in Egypt and he witnesses an Egyptian treating an Israelite very harshly, beating him. So Moses becomes upset at this and kills the Egyptian. Buries him, hides him. but kills him. Soon after, he witnesses two Jews, two Israelites, having a conflict. And so Moses goes over and tries to break up the argument. Hey, what's going on here, guys? You know what? And so one of the Hebrews said to him, oh, mind your own business. Are you going to kill us like you killed that Egyptian? So then the Torah tells us something very interesting. I want you guys to really pay attention to these verses. Okay? It says after that, when Moses heard that, it says, Moses became frightened because the matter had become known. And then the following verse says, Pharaoh heard of the incident and he wanted to kill Moses. So Moses was scared. Moses had fear because the incident had become known. And following verse tells us that Pharaoh heard the news and he wanted to kill Moses. The question is like this. Why does the Torah tell us that Moses feared, that Moses had fear? The Torah is not passively telling us what his emotions were. The Torah doesn't just passively tell us anything. And he was happy because of this. And he was sad. He was scared. The fact that the Torah writes it means that it conveys a specific meaning. It is, after all, a normal reaction. I mean, if you had the idea that everyone knew that you had done something really bad and it meant your life, it's a natural reaction to fear. So it's something we could have also figured out on our own. Why does the Torah have to specify and tell us, use a whole extra word, tell us that he was scared? So we always remember that everything that the Torah says, the Torah only mentions things that are relevant to all the Jewish people for all times and all places. So the idea that Moses feared and subsequently Pharaoh heard and wanted to slay Moses has an underlying meaning and a message for each and every one of us. And before we talk about what that is, we're going to preface with another idea. The Rambam, the famous medieval sage Maimonides, teaches in his magnum opus, Moreh Nevuchim, the Guide for the Perplexed. He describes intellect as a very powerful means, a very powerful conduit of connecting to God. He says that the human mind is intuitively connected with what he calls the active intellect, or divine intellect. The divine intellect is a divine attribute that's independent of the human being. It's an intellect that's outside of the human mind. And it describes in there that our thoughts are influenced by this active intellect, by this divine intellect. But not only that, but that our thoughts can also attract energy and attract information from the divine intellect, from this active intellect. So our thoughts and the active or divine intellect's thoughts have an exchange, have an effect on one another. That the thoughts produce results based on information. Our thoughts produce results based on information and an influence that it has gotten from the divine intellect. The Rebbe takes the idea a step further. He says that through our thoughts we influence the actual reality. It's our thoughts themselves that actually influence the reality that exists in the world. When Moses feared, when it says Moses became Moses was frightened. And the following verse says, Pharaoh heard, one was a result of the other. Because of the fact that Moses feared, because of the fact that he had this negative outlook, and he got scared, and the way he saw the world now was in a fearful way, that caused the result that Pharaoh heard and wanted to kill Moses. It's because of the fact that he was scared, because of the fact that he had this negative outlook, that he didn't have complete trust at that moment, that the negative outcome occurred, that Pharaoh heard and wanted to kill him. The thoughts breed actions. The thoughts breed results. Having complete assurance in God that He's going to make things good for you is not an easy task. But through doing it, through a person having complete confidence, complete trust, working on himself to that point, that is what makes the conduit to be worthy of receiving the divine blessings. Just like when we discussed prayer, we said that prayer is meant to transform ourselves into a proper vessel to be able to receive Hashem's blessings, Hashem's bounty. Positive thinking works in the same way, a very similar way. Positive thoughts, having total trust in Hashem, that He's going to make things good in a way that you can see them as good, breeds positive results. That in the world, in reality, good things are going to happen. Now, a person has to really believe that, has to really think that, has to really trust. But through that trust, if a person really, really trusts, it will happen. The good will come. The good results will show themselves. Even to a person who, because of their actions, is undeserving of it. Through the thoughts, through the positive thoughts, the good results follow. The Tzemach Tzedek, the third Rebbe of Chabad, was one time confronted by a child who was very sick. And he told the father, think good, and it will be good. Think positive, and the results will be positive. Now, this wasn't just wishful thinking. This wasn't just, a nice cheer up. The Tzemach Tzedek meant the reality. If you think good, if you have trust, and you really believe, and you think positive, the results in the material world will be positive. It will have a positive and lasting result. So that's the Torah's approach, or one avenue of the Torah's approach to the idea of positive thinking. Now, is there another approach? Yes. There are many approaches, all along the same lines. Next time, we'll talk about another approach. Have a great night.